Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome back to the Draw Juice channel. I'm Chris Petrocchi, or if you're new here, please hit the like and subscribe and click the little bell so you can get all notifications. I'm so grateful to be here. If you want to learn how to draw, you've got to have the juice, and that's why I'm here, the Draw Juice. I'm here to teach you the fundamentals, the foundational principles, the pillars of drawing, of design, to move your art along to the place where you want it to be, where you dream it could be, where I dreamed and have dreamt and continue to dream, where I want my art to be. It's a never-ending process, and that is what intrigues me. That's what attracts me. It's never old. It's as long as I stay curious and ask questions, I can be entertained and I can learn, and that's really cool. And I can teach that to others. Okay, you can do that too. So let's strive for something high. Let's fix our aim on something worth trying for and focus on that and learn from the inevitable fallout of that. Meaning, we will fall, we will fail, but it's better than not trying. It's way better. And that is my message. I want to check my private chat. All good on the stream. Yes, and we welcome Zoran. Yo, what's happening? Hello, hello, hello. Is there anybody there? Is that a Pink Floyd lyric? Do you know Pink Floyd, Zoran? Okay. Mimika. Oh my gosh. It's her. It is the Greek goddess on the line here. What's happening? I'm here, you're here, we're here. I'm me, you're you. That's all we need to know. So if you guys come on in, just say hi, leave a comment, and tell me where you're from. And we'll get going here. I want to start with a gratitude that I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful to be doing this, to be reaching out, to be connecting. You know, as artists, we spend a lot of time isolated, and it's great to be connected and to a community of folks that there's me. Hey, there's a community of folks out there that never before in the history of mankind could we now touch and talk to and gather ideas and share ideas. And so that's really, really cool. Stephen says hello from Estonia. That's crazy. Oh my God, I better get my geography map out and really check where that is. I think it's in Eastern Europe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome, Stephen. That's so cool that you're here. So I'm grateful that my equipment is working, that I have things to draw with, that I have students, and they've submitted work tonight. So we're gonna critique some of their work. I'll get to as many as I can. Probably won't get to everybody. So please forgive me if I don't. I'll hold them over to next week if I don't get to you. So that's my gratitude, and wanted to start with a quote as well. So the quote is, "Where the spirit does not work with the hand, there is no art." Leonardo da Vinci. He had a lot of quotes. He was a profound thinker, a Renaissance man with the art, the science, the philosophy. And what did he mean by that? I know that Da Vinci was a spiritual man. I don't think he was affiliated with any particular religious tradition, but he kind of believed that painting involved the study of natural forms, and he emphasized the intimate connection between the artist's representation of those forms and the intellectual understanding of their intrinsic nature and underlying principles. So he was into anatomy, he was into machinery, mechanics. He knew that the human body and other living forms were they worked on machine principles. They weren't machines, but they had mechanics involved. And so he felt that in order to paint nature's living forms, he felt that the need for scientific understanding of their underlying principles was really important. So he had a thing about water. He had a fascination with water and the connection between the flow of water and organic forms, and everything is constituted of 80% water or 70% water or something like that, right? So water, if you don't have it, that form does not look like itself anymore. It shrinks and shrivels and dies. So water is super important. And we use those principles. I use them in figure drawing hugely. The flow, the fluidity of the figure, and the wave-like nature, the spring-like nature of the figure. It's not just bones and mechanical things. There's a kind of a water principle there as well. So Um, so the spirit here, where the spirit does not work with the hand, is some kind of connection with understanding of underlying principles, the intellectual um, understanding via, looking, observing, and then the science. He did a lot of autopsy kind of anatomical drawings of muscle, bone, fetus, and he also you've probably seen this before, right? What's that? Anybody in the comments know what that is? It is from Leonardo himself. That's the Vitruvian Man. Okay, Vitruvian Man. And that's the universal man, represents the beauty, complexity, the symmetry of the human frame. So there's that relationship between the physical body and its parts and the parts to the whole, right? And how things work. So he had that passion for art and science and philosophy in medicine, and it spilled over into his studies, his drawings, and his notes. And I think you can see these notes are backwards. They're written backwards. So if you held them up in a mirror, you'd be able to decipher what he said. And it's in Italian, so we won't bother there. So how about we jump into some critique, and then I'll stop, or maybe we can do this. Oops. Let's go over to my other document here. Give me a second. Oh, it's not even, I got to boot that thing up. Let's I think it's there now. Are we good? Can you hear me, everybody? I've got my mic. Yeah. Oh, yes. We are back. We're back. Sorry about that, guys. My machine freaked out. What was that? I have no idea. So as I was saying, I'm going to start with, if I can find it here, give me a second. That was not fun. Hey, I'm still grateful. I'm grateful I'm back. Let's go for the battle of creativity here. We've been on this series and we've been talking about creativity and the battles that we face as artists. Let me know in the chat that you guys can hear me again and see everything. Yeah, I'm going to be more grateful about my equipment, Zoran. Right. How ironic. Sampico, what's happening? Good to see you. Stephen, yes. Okay. Jessica, good to see you. What's going on? Oh. All right. So the battles that we face, let's go through this because we talked about the challenges of the artist so far, and we're in some kind of battle. I'm going to go through this really quick. And we're facing a battle. We have enemies, so to speak, and we have friends as well. So let's talk about that really quick, where we've been. Right? The thumbnail was our friend, and those were bare-boned, just basic information drawings. And here's some of the enemies we had: uncertainty, overconfidence, fear of commitment. Just going through this really quick. Fear of failure, pressure to impress. Oh, that's a big one, right? Laziness. But we have allies, your fellow artists, right? Two heads are better than one. Drawing fundamentals, repetition of the basics, perspective. That's what we covered. Drawing in perspective along 3 axes, right? Making solid forms. And we talked a little bit about perspective, and then drawing primitive shapes. Anything you want to draw could be done with a ball, box, or a tube. And so we covered that last time. Okay, this time we're going to talk about another one of our allies, one of our tools. It is overlap. Now that overlap is really important. And I want to see if I can get my other tool out here that allows me to draw on top here. So overlap, let me talk real quick about creating depth. Look at that. Depth. We got the acronym DOFAC. That's how I remember it. DOFAC. And it means, the D stands for diminution. That means things get smaller, right? Scale. So if a ball goes away from us, it just gets smaller, right? That's diminution. They appear same size ball, but appears to get smaller as it goes away from us in space. Then we have the O, overlaps. That's so funny. Overlaps, right? That's self-explanatory. We'll look at that though real quick. F. Guess what? I'm drawing a blank. I forget what F is. A is atmosphere. Atmospheric perspective. And that has to do with things looking through atmosphere and gas and dust and particles, which changes the edge quality, the color quality, and value of things. And then we have C, which is convergence. And that is a little more closer to perspective as we think of it as two parallel lines recede off into the distance. They converge at a single point called the vanishing point on the horizon line. Okay, so that's kind of that. But we're going to just talk about overlaps, right? So checking this out, if you have three basic shapes and you make them overlap, you're going to create kind of a foreground, midground, background constellation. Very good. Use your overlaps. They're super powerful. They imply depth and perspective without 3-point perspective or math. Okay. Don't over here on the right avoid tangents. Don't use tangents if things are close, but just butting up against each other and forming a tangent. Just go ahead and overlap them or break them apart. It'll destroy the illusion if you don't do that. So this idea that if you're standing on the horizon line and you're looking straight out, things that are really big, right? They're going to appear way off in the distance. You're not going to be able to see the tops or the bottoms. They're just basically a flat 2D kind of shape. And then as things come forward, okay, you're going to have something like maybe like this. You might be able to squeeze something like this. It's still kind of flat, but you get this implied area here of another dimension, like the XY, a little bit like of a half Z going off in space. So you get this corner right here. And then as things get even closer, right, you might have, as things get closer, they either get smaller to you, or you're either looking down on things or you're looking up. Okay, so once you start looking down at things, if you can imagine things in your home, the floor, a table, right? The TV on the wall would be a neutral position looking straight out, right? But the ceiling would be up. So as things come towards you out of the distance, you're either sort of looking down on them, the road, right, the chair, or you're looking up, the ceiling, right, the trees. So you can start to see tops. And so here you have one face that you can see. Here you have two, and it's almost like a 2.5D. It's not quite 3D yet. And here you have 1, 2, 3. That's the X, Y, and the Z. Okay, X, Y, Z. And now you're in full 3D space, right? If you think like this, to draw like this, your drawings are going to look 3D. There's not too much magic to it, although it does appear magic. But that's the idea. Okay, so we start with simple 2D stuff and we make our way, this way so that we have the full illusion of rendered form. Okay. So don't do the overlaps. So if you have, something like this, and you have something like this, overlapping it, right? Look right here. Look at these areas here and here. You have something, what I call the Y principle. You have kind of a letter Y, or here you have some version of a Y, okay? That you'll find in figure drawing, you'll find it in everything. Use that as a simple kind of overlap. The other one is the letter T principle. So if I have, a square here and a square overlapping it, you'll see we have these areas here. Those are like letter T's, the letter T. So the Y and the T principle also help with this overlap thing. So use those in your drawing. You can find them in the figure, in the fold of your arm, in the compression of your arm as you bring your forearm up to your bicep, to your upper arm. There's a squeeze there. You can see little things, overlaps. Really cool, very effective. Another thing, use darker lines for things that are in the foreground and medium and thinner lines for things that recede. That's the atmospheric perspective part of it. Okay, so without, this is like perspective for dummies, you know, for us that don't know much about it, right? I don't know if I can get this to look right, but if you have, let me do the background thing first. If you have something in the background and I draw it with a light line, let's draw it with the yellow. Okay, something back there, thin, and then we'll move kind of forward with something green. And then something in the foreground. And that's going to be, you know, like really dark and really thick. All right, so we've got the thick line here, the medium line here, and the thin line. And so you have the foreground, middle ground, background. And I'm using that line quality to make it recede. Right, this could be a little bit thicker than the yellow one. And this one could be just the biggest. See how that kind of works, right? So you're using line plus overlap. Don't do this, right? If you're going to have it overlap, really make it overlap, okay? Excellent. Okay, so let's get into the critique. So I'm going to stop this. And we are going to go over to Photoshop, back into the digital universe here, back into, imagine if Leonardo was alive now. What do you guys think? What would he think of Photoshop and Maya and Unity, right? What would he think? Would he use those tools? Let me know in the comments. Hey, Maggie, good to see you. Lorenzo Rojas, what's going on? Oh, Dominique. He's Dominique. Okay. All right, so we are up first is Zoran. Zoran, you're up. Yes. Wow, this looks great. I really like this. This looks super duper with the expression. I mean, the expression's coming through, and that's what you want. We don't really want to see the messenger. We want to see the message. We don't want to see your construction and your boxes and your rhythms and stuff. We just want to see the beautiful rhythm, the beautiful relationship, the beautiful person. What, you know, whether it's an portrait or just someone you're unfamiliar with. We want to capture that emotion, and you've really done this. It's awesome. I love the texture on the clothing, the texture on the back wall. Nice way to edit things out. Just keep it simple. You devised a projected shadow on the wall to silhouette her, which is really cool. Dark holds light. Now, another option you could do would be to have that dark on the other side. So the dark holds the light, right? And then medium or light holds the dark because she has shadow on the right and light on her left side. Again, the features, parts are great. Expression of the mouth, proportions are all very cool. You'd be really proud of this. Really proud. And so I wonder who that is. Is that somebody you know? Okay, so the only thing that I would say on this, if I was to say anything, and that's my job, I'm going to make all this black and white, is to look at the values and see if we can do anything there. So again, we have the value scale, the trusty value scale that we bring all the time. And if I was to, sample something, and I would be looking at I've got it somewhere like a 50% on the skin. So that local value of the skin, the local color is in the middle. And so when I sample yours, it's really way up there. It's about as light as the highlights. So you've got no room for your highlights. So you could create a little bit more depth by introducing a value there. So if I went ahead and sampled that and I just put it in very flat at first, because I just want to get the spacing and placing of this family of darks, let's say the dark shape. Let me just put it in flat and I can create volume later. Remember, put things in flat, make it simple. I go from 2D to 3D. So we've got to get the shape designed first. Get it kind of put in rough like that. Her hair is pretty dark. And you can make it light, but if I darken up her hair or her face, then it seems like her hair has got to go a little bit darker. So value is very contextual, and it's going to, if I put a dark value in, it's going to have to adjust everything now in the drawing. So we got kind of a side light, kind of a split lighting, you would call it in photography. Right, so see how the introduction of that value implies form. So value change signals a form change. Different value, different plane. Same value, same plane. So if I want value, if I want form in my shapes, I've got to start introducing change, some more values, widen the value range. So now I went from flat, and now I've got introducing the second value just to turn things a little bit, especially along the form shadow right here on the bridge of her nose, ball of her nose. And I'm going to be just really careful because I don't want it to start looking dirty. And I'm kind of, I'm hesitant to do this because what you did was so great on its own. As long as we're talking about realistic and realism, then, this applies. If you're talking about communicating emotion and capturing a moment, capturing a personality, you did that. You nailed it. So this is just kind of technical thing that we can kind of grab onto here just to kind of do the crit here. Okay, what else we got? Trying to keep it simple. And squint and compare. at the reference, squint and compare at my drawing, and see if they look similar. And you can kind of see her forehead, and the whole thing is in this half tone. It's not a highlight. The light's camera left, so it's lighting up the side of her nose and her cheek and the lower portion of her lower lid. So let me see. So after I put things in kind of flat, then I can just go ahead and, assess my edges and just make sure the edges conform to what I'm looking at. And especially it's a little child, so no hard edges, no abrupt changes in planes. It's all soft and round. So I want my edges to be really soft. In the shadows, especially. Now there's a little triangle there on the cheek. I'm just noticing that. And there's a little bit of Rembrandt lighting there. It's right there. A little bit lighter, and then see that? There's a little hard edge under the lower border of the lower lid, and then onto the cheek is a form shadow, so it's going to be soft. And if I squint down, it all goes into the dark anyway, so I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. Your secret weapon is squinting and comparing. There is nothing else. So that's about it. That's all I would do. Just a little push in the values. And that's, kind of essential for realistic drawing. Again, you can make a stylistic choice where it's more flat and graphic, and that's just fine as well. And so I'm thinking of this thing as just a very round head, a round form. It's a modified sphere because it's got eyes and a little extruded nose and lips and things like that. Right? So is that good? You might try sharing with a brush light pressure. Yeah. Just go real. I'm really on my opacity for my brush is like 30%. I think the flow is 100, opacity is 10%. And I'm just using a middle value gray. And that's it. So if you want to do that, you can try. I don't think it would hurt. I think you can. I'm not going to mess up. But if you do, just do it again. Pursue that while you're, I don't know, while you have the either inclination, the time, or the energy. I would say go for it. Take the risk. It's going to pay off, I think, even if it gets ruined. Okay. Flip it. If you're doing this on paper, which I think you are, just hold it up to the mirror and look at it fresh, and or have a little handheld mirror like in your hand. And if you imagine holding this mirror right up to your eye and looking into that mirror and sort of pointing it at your drawing that's in front of you, and you look into that mirror at the drawing that's coming in, it's going to give you it flopped horizontally, and that'll be like a fresh pair of eyes. And that way you can see distances, proportions, angles better, and protect yourself against that kind of the bias that we all have, that we want to succeed, so we don't look at the things that are wrong, right? It's much easier to avoid problems in our life than to stare at them and go, I'm going to fix that. It's painful, right? Don't do that. Try staring into the mistake and then fixing it unflinchingly. What else? What else do you have to do? You don't have anything better to do, right? I mean, wasting your time on social media, Facebook and Instagram, swiping through your feed. Heck no. All right. I say that's a great job. Anything in the comments, just let me know. Zoria. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this drawing here. Subod, hello. All right, this is cool. I like this one a lot because it's a caricature. So he's definitely going for a caricature. And he's got proportions are squashed, right? Horizontally. So he appears more vertical, kind of more stretched vertically. And, he's playing around with proportions. Nice rendering, nice cross hatching, describing the forms. That's really good. I like it. And I'm just kind of, well, the eyes are lovely in the expression in the eyes. Nose, the connection of the features, all that stuff. I'd say maybe the level of detail in the neck, like the anatomy in the neck, maybe doesn't fit the rest of the drawing. It's a little bit too much in there. We've got sternocleidomastoid, we've got Adam's apple, hyoid bone, platysma, and then back here we have the trapezius, and it's kind of like kind of went from the caricature to Leonardo. So the top part's character, the latter part is a kind of a Leonardo study of anatomy. Okay. And I like your anatomy. It looks good. It looks accurate. Things look very well connected. But if you're going to, go with a stylized thing, you could back off on the anatomy a little bit, And I think because it's a little distracting, my eye tends to go over here to all this noise when you kind of want us to go here, right? So what can we do? Just a little bit of thinking through this. I'm gonna have to, oops, take here. I just want to fill that. Oops, not fill that. Okay. When you go live, everything goes funky. It still might. Everything may just crash to the ground, but I'll still be standing here talking to you guys, even if you can't hear me. Okay. So I don't know. These are difficult, not difficult, but you could think, what's the shape of his head? Is it a teardrop? Right? Is it more boxy? Is it more round? I mean, those are things you can think about. Start looking for the head type. I'm thinking it's kind of more round and more teardrop-like. I might just go with a theme of like round. Because everything looks round. You've got the hat, and it's really round. the edges on the hat are round. So you could go round, and that would say, you know, friendly, approachable, cute. Depends on what you want to say. Depends on what this guy, what your impression of this guy is when you know, encounter him. You know, you could make the neck really long, right? Or you can make it really short. Depends, right? Make it just medium. And then kind of shape this thing. Find a way to shape it off so everything is designed. You can do a little anatomy, right? Like a little something, or just a little overlap, right? The letter Y, remember? That creates depth. There's the letter Y right there. And then you can, I would say, pick one thing and then make that the star. So it could be the nose, it could be the mouth, or it could be the eyes. He has really small eyes, it seems like to me. And so, you know, you might say, all right, the eyes are going to be small. Remember, you can compress things into the center. Maybe it's his mouth that's the thing. You know, maybe we could feature that. You know, but I kind of, so there's, you know, that's the more circular, friendly look. Everything could be round. You kind of went with the stretched look. I think that's good too. Um, and you could really push his nose. Make it really big. And maybe take his lips and make them really big too. Kind of like Mick Jagger. You know, this is that like going to Disneyland and sitting in front of somebody and they're just picking out the most essential things about you. Those eyes are really small, so might want to just get really small with those eyes. Big eyebrows. The big and bushier the eyebrows, the younger the person's going to look. So if you want somebody to look young, give them big bushy eyebrows. All right, so we've got kind of a big, you know, big lips. And you could go really to town with that. Big, super big lips. And then he's got that narrow face, little chin. Maybe he's looking over here to the side. One eyebrow could be up, you know. This is so fun. And then the hat, you know, would we go big with the hat or small with the hat? Maybe it could go really small. Erase this part out. And then the neck, ears, big, medium, small. And so I guess what I'm saying is you could really stretch things out on something like this and pick one thing to make it the star of the show. And play around with it a little bit more, not too much anatomy, but a little bit more, pushing and pulling of the basic circle, right? Squash and stretch. You can do it with a box too. And just figure out how to, make it simple but characteristic. And that's not the best caricature in the world, but just kind of playing around with stuff. Like that's what I'm kind of just thinking through the process with you to show you, what I would do. And I just really go with gut instinct. I go with the read, of who this guy appears to me to be. Maybe he's got a little ponytail or something like that. And that's pretty fun to do. And hopefully, the more that I did to it, the better it would look. Okay, so that's that for what it's worth. Let's go on to Dominique. This one's awesome. Really love this one. Great work. It's beautiful. Yeah. I love the rendering and the values, proportions. Very well done, Dominique. Very well done. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Let me know. Not much to say with this one because I think it's just so beautifully done. Maybe the hair could be just a little bit, a little quieter here because it looks like he's got gray hair or he's bald. They've shaved it right there. So since it's in the shadow, this whole side of his head's in the shadow. I would put it in the shadow. If it's too light, it starts to become confusing. So just quiet it down a little bit. Otherwise, it's just amazing the fullness that you have in the hair, the layers of hair, the texture of the hair. So this is very successful. Same thing here in the ear. It's a little bit light, right? It gets a little bit lighter than it should be in the shadow. So just quiet that down. And that way you have that variety of value up near the front where you want us to look, and you don't have this other stuff calling attention back there. Okay, just a very simple adjustment. That's kind of what I would say for this one. Right? Don't you guys think so? Let me know in the comments. I'm just looking, bouncing my eyes back and forth a little bit. Yeah, that's it. Maybe I'll come back to it, but I just think it's so spot on that you can put that in your portfolio, post it on your Instagram. There's a little bit of something here. I see like this line right here in that throat area. It's distracting a little bit. Beautifully done, Dominique. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, you're here. Lorenzo Dominique. Okay, cool. All right, so let's move on. Thanks for that entry, Dominique. It's pretty cool. Be proud, right? Let it shine. Okay, let's go to Maggie. I think this is a Sergeant copy, right? Study. And so I'm going to come back to this one. It's Maggie here. I didn't see her. Ace, welcome. What's going on? Glad you're here. All right, let's look at this now. Carolyn, how are you? Okay, I'm going to put some. Okay. Yeah, so this is cool. This is gritty. I love it. It's hitting many of the right keys here, because it's got that pool of light, right in center that kind of Rembrandt would use, and it's making him glow. To me, I feel like he's just glowing, and that's kind of what you want. You want us focused in right there. I'm going to turn off the. Okay. Got that glow, so that's good. So the lighting's working. I think the variety of line is somewhat similar, describing form shadows, cast shadows, features, and even compression folds, as well as the material. So, I'm just thinking that we can use some variety you could use some variety in your line. So the line weight, we can have a sort of monoline, monotone, not very expressive, right? And then we can have thin to thick to thin, or thick to thin to thick, okay? We're starting to get a dynamic line in that way, right? With that, right? And then we can have a curved line and thick to thin. So that's showing momentum, and it's showing just a little bit of variety. So that mono line, you've got kind of a line that's doing this. And I see that is your tool for indicating everything. So to spice it up a little bit, you need to sharpen your pencil. I bet you this is one of the things. You tell me if I'm wrong, but your pencil is like this on the edge. Look at that pencil. Looks like a dessert with a cherry on top. Okay, but this is going to give you a kind of thicker and duller, it's not so crisp line on the edges, whereas this one here is going to give you very crisp if you need it. This one on the right cannot give you crisp, so it's got to be sharp. And then you have to draw either on the point, on the shoulder, right? Shoulder is going to give you thick, point is going to give you thin, super thin, and anywhere in between, and the pressure as well. So the point and the pressure come into play. And if I look, maybe I'll throw something over the top here. And let me just do that and back out of that. Okay. Are we having fun? You guys let me know in the chat. We having fun? Got any questions? Talk to me. Okay. So in that nose, there is a soft part. Can I get my... Okay, so I have... the soft edge, hard edge. There's kind of a softer edge here, harder edge there, soft edge here, a little bit crisper there, compression here, compression here. Those are very tight, crisp lines, tight, crisp upper border of the upper lid on, against the sclera, right? All these little places where start to find areas where you can implement this stuff. So you've kind of got, a little bit crisp on the nose, but it could be crisper. Uh, right, so I'd have to go and push darker. So now I have a hard edge right there on the right and a lower edge, hard edge, soft edge. So I took what you had and I just added a little bit of edge control. And so to contrast, your nice form shadow on the bridge of the nose, you could have a crisp right there where that shadow meets the eye and forms a plane change, the cast shadow and a plane change kind of in the same spot. I could push it a little bit darker right there. You got a pretty nice one here in the split of the lips. That's nice and crisp where it needs to be. So I could just go through, like, these two edges on either side of the shadow are kind of the same. When I see it, I see one side is compressed, and then the other side is kind of a form shadow. That looks a little dark, but I'm trying to over exaggerate it a little bit. So you have a compression inside that crevice, and then along here you have a form shadow. So you could just go through and look, like right here, there's a compression, and then here is a little bit softer. So I would just come over here and kind of go, I'd make a difference in the kind of line that I had so I could have some variety there. And that's going to do a lot, maybe a lot more than you think. It's going to add a little bit of structure. It's going to add a little bit of variety. And especially in the compression areas, you can go ahead and go dark. Like where the skin folds up right there, you can go dark. Just like on this other side where the sclera and the upper eyelid meet. Those are areas where you can go ahead and go to your full value range. And maybe it's the scan, but maybe you've got little holidays, the little areas of paper that show through, and that causes a kind of a fuzzy feeling. And then you do have kind of a value thing, which you've got it really, 70% there. But then you could use more value to express more form. And it's, let me see, what I would do here is just, start to just darken it up a little bit. Start to find my extremes a little bit to get the drama. You're gonna have drama. So we're adding some juice here, some draw juice. In order to really get the form to pop, we need to push the illusion via the value scale. Gotta know your value scale. And using radial shading. Do you see how I went dark there and then I went a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter? So I've got these bands moving across the forehead. Now I'm doing that by pressure, sensitivity, pressing lighter, but also on my keyboard, I'm up at the top from 1 to 10, 1 to 0. I'm going down the keyboard from like 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to help that. So I get this kind of, so if I've got a number 4, let's say, and then a number 3, and I press a little bit lighter, and then a number 2, and then a 1. I've almost got like this sand dune, this pile of sand built up, right? And it creates a topological kind of dimension to it. If you look at a map, it's often expressed like that, mountainous ranges versus flat, flat plains butting up against a mountainous area, right? So that's your kind of your brush technique. Well, I know you're not using digital here, so you have to bear with me, but take that tip for digital for the future, everybody out there. So I'm just, because that's one of the hardest parts, is this smudging charcoal around and shading, right? And it can get out of control. So we need a way to kind of like organize it, especially in these gradations, that they're so fine. So that smudging doesn't become, dirty and get out of control. And so we're laying down kind of these strips of value, in a sense. And we're either lightening them or building them up in, let's say, strokes, okay? So you can do it, obviously you can do that with hatch marks and cross hatching to build up. I'm kind of doing it in broader strokes. In other words, if you held your pencil on the side and took an overhand grip and you exposed the lead, you could get a nice thick stroke and not a pencil stub that's either very sharp or dull. You can kind of just turn it onto the shoulder and get that kind of broad stroke. You're kind of, thinking a little bit like a painter then. So I'm just putting a stroke down, seeing how it looks, taking it off. We could really build this up. We could go to town on it. It could take a while. But if I kind of was just thinking about where the light direction is, squinting and comparing, and starting to just push in a little bit more, you find you could go a lot further. And you already went really far, and it already looked really cool, in my humble opinion. And yet there's always more, right? The road is full of surprises. And we never know how far we can go until we push it too far. There, his hair is just dark. You know, we don't need all that detail. We just don't. Pick a couple areas. The rest, make it a shape, a value shape. For here, I'm going to leave like a core shadow and leave his hair 70% dark. See, so that upper lip is facing away from the light in this scenario, so it's going to be darker than the lower lip. Darker here. And you can see the drama start to come in. So this drawing, you could go further. It's not going to ruin it. You have a long way to go before it was, you know, ruined. So you could take a chance if you wanted to. Now his skin, the local color or local value is going to be, you know, somewhere in the 50% to darker. See on my color block there, right? So that darker complected skin will have a little bit different problem to deal with than lighter complected skin. And so, you know, on my value scale, I'd be dealing with, you know, this range. This is white here, up here. So I'd be dealing with from 3 to 5, and I wouldn't have too much of the light stuff. You know, I'd have mostly dark with some highlight, right? And so I'd be working in the darker values, and that might feel weird, right? Not used to doing that. And so you just get your value scale out and force yourself to do that. There's a trick called halfway to black, and it's kind of a color theory. It's kind of a tool to deal with different values and light, the effects of light and shadow on those things. And so it's a formula, and it's really cool. I can teach it maybe another time. But I'm kind of darkening this thing by degree here. I'm just trying to see, you know, just trying to see what gives me that feeling like a thumbs up. If I do a stroke and I go, no, you know, if it's a thumbs down, if it's a gut thing, I just go with a yes, thumbs up, or no, thumbs down. If it's a thumbs down, I kind of do it again. If it's a thumbs up, I leave it. You know, I just put it down, look at it, put it down, react, put it down, react. And I trust my gut, you know. I try to trust my gut. And it's cool. It's like you're a cowboy. You're a gunslinger. You're slinging value. And your pursuit is the image. And it's fun. It's daring. I don't know if you find that helpful, but I do. I find it fun to think as if I'm on a quest to do something that's really important to me, and I'm one of the best, and I'm just slinging down value and color and line and shape, and form and making something from nothing. So I kind of like to, I don't know, think of it like that, like the old time cowboy or somebody on an adventure, an Indian, a pirate, a, a Viking, I don't know, whatever speaks to you. For you, it might be a princess or a queen. Who else? I don't know. Joan of Arc. Okay, so I'm putting the catch light in there and all that stuff that you gotta have. But remember to squint and compare and look at your edges. So you did great. I think it's, I'm not going to take this too much further. It take a little time, to do it. But you can see how it's sort of coming along. Just got to inch into it, ease into it. If it's looking too out of value, I could bring everything sort of back into the center a little bit, back into the middle. Really heavy on the shadows, this one. There's not a lot of bounce light. So the shadows go black. And so there's not a lot of form in there. Okay. Check the chat here. Lorenzo says, hi, Chris, do you think I have to put the shadow in the background of portrait? Okay, so let's see. Let me go back to that. But Carolyn, that was great. And you did an awesome job. It looks cool. And I think you could push it a little further and get some of that drama into it. So Dominique was saying, put the shadow. Yeah, I was thinking about the shadow there. Just, you could, it could be something in there just to, when you have contrast, your eye will go there. So if you silhouette, his head is very cut out. If you put a little shadow back there, it brings the attention away from the back and more to the front, right? So yes, you could, and it's fine if you don't. Okay, so let's go here to, I don't know who this is, but this is cool. I like it. Great shapes. The shapes are really good. The parts are good. The lines are good. I think you could pull out and express a little more volume in there because it looks a little flat, but I love the hair. I'm just thinking that the nose looks good, the eyes look super good, details look great, and why am I having a little spinning wheel here? Okay. I love the way you did that hair. It's simple and yet it appears to have texture and volume. So great job on that. Very subtle things I would do to this, but it's mostly in the halftones. And I don't know. I don't think I even want to do anything to it, right? Because it's so subtle and we don't have the time to. If I was just to darken just a little bit, or would I do it? If I had 15 minutes and the art director said, the client wants this to be a little bit more, darker or a little bit more value in here, where would I do it? I'd squint and compare. I'd look at these areas where, I'd think, what is this? It's a cheek. It's roundish. The light is from very soft light, very difficult to draw dimension and form from this kind of light. So that's one thing that makes this hard. There's a window, skylight, or softbox with just very soft shadows on this woman's face. But, I could say, well, I know what a form shadow is. I could put one in the ball of her nose, put a little form shadow there, and then that would create some volume on the wing of the nose. I could go slightly darker in the nasal cavity there. So that was showing up here slightly, so that makes the bounce light on the wing of her nose a little bit more, but I'd quiet it down too. There's that occlusion shadow where the wing of the nose meets the cheek. You could bring that in just ever so slightly here, right there, where the orbit of the eye meets the eyeball and the lid itself. There's a little opportunity there, little opportunity right there, right on the forehead, just a little bit. Here, here. Right, so that she has a side plane and a front now on the muzzle of her mouth, where she just had one plane before, kind of. I'd put a little on the terminus of the masculine node right there. I could get that little ball and shade the underside, lower lip connection to the chin, and then right there on the left side of the chin as it goes into the hair, rolls away from the light. Okay, so it's just some subtle stuff. And then I would go deep, see against the hair, the lower left lid on the left eye. I would go a little bit darker and push it back under the hair, right? Do you see that? It's darker than the hair, and it's giving it a darker value, makes it recede. Right? Just that little corner in there, because it's really dark right there. I would just soften it up a little bit. But you could play with that if it went too far. Like that. So you could take those little opportunities where you can push things a little bit. Right, so the hair is a little bit lighter than that area that goes behind it on that lower lid, right? So I would just lighten up the hair just a little bit, because that hair is catching light right there. Okay, so that's a way to get a little bit more value or a little bit more volume in it. And I think you did a lovely job here, all things considered. There's a plane there. Do you see that cartilage on her nose? So there's that septum there, and then there's a little hard edge there. I see that on so many noses when I look for it now. There's this little hard piece there. It's very subtle. But if you sneak it in, it may be just the thing you need to make your nose look a little better. Maybe, maybe not. So all this kind of goes a little bit darker. But so that's kind of what I meant. I, you know, it looks like, you're not quite done yet. And like there was a Polaroid blast, from a flash right from the front, and that makes things look flat. So we want to, and her lighting is a little bit more off to the right and a little more soft. Definitely soft, but we still could push it. Okay, so that's kind of, what I would do with this one. And then I would put, I would go with my highlight or my eraser and see if I could put, grab a little highlight here and there. Just here and there. Bridge of the nose. Where else? Ball of the nose, maybe. Just very soft edged. Too much. Right there on her tubercle, right there. That Cupid's bow, that edge, that red lipped portion of the mouth, that's a muscle. It's the red muscle, actually, is what the lips are. That's why they're red. Okay, so like that, just a couple of little places where I would feature that. And that's it. Great job, Carolyn. Or Steve, wait, who is this? It wasn't Carolyn. It was Stephen Dempsey. Great job, Stephen. Loved it. Loved that hair. Okay, awesome. So, gosh, guys, we are almost, I don't know. I think that was everybody. Was it? Stephen Dempsey. Cheers, Chris. Yeah, ooh. Yeah, man. All right, what do we got? We got any questions? Because I think we did everything. What's this? Going through here. Oh yeah, Maggie. Maggie, this looks great. I think you did another one really nice. There's a lot of pencil work in here, textures and stuff that I think are fantastic, like the background. And you're learning how to render with a variety of strokes. This is one confusing thing, I think. It's like, how do you cover all that ground? And that becomes a question. Do you just smudge stuff around and push it around with a big hunk of charcoal, right? Do you take that charcoal and really sharpen it up and create straight lines like Sargent did in this background, like you did so nice, right? Or do you make it a little thicker and put them close together so that it's darker and more bold, right? Because if I took the hatching right here and I needed it darker, well, I'd have to put ones in between. And then when that got kind of used up, I'd have to overlap with different angle now, similar weight line, and build it up darker. And then I would go another way. I wouldn't go the same way twice. And you can do this until all the valleys of the paper are filled in. And I would just keep changing the direction. And you can go until it's dark. Okay, so that's cross hatching. This here is hatching. This is X hatch. And then there's all kinds of other things that you could do to fill up a gradation or a flat massing in of tone. So you could do stippling, try to get them all the same size. right? With pen and ink. This is my least favorite. You could do hatching like this in these little blocks. And that kind of gives the impression, of some movement back there. There are these, there's these sections, I don't know why it works, but it seems to work. It's a little bit of a puzzle that you have to put together. And that's fun. I like that. You just vary the stroke and make them meet. And you can cover a whole background like that. Gibson, Charles Gibson, famous for the Gibson girls that he did pen and ink renderings of. Let's call it up. Let me see if I can get to it real quick. Charles Gibson, he had just this great facility with his pen and ink. Gibson girls. Okay, let's bring this over here. Okay, look at this. Look at the variety. Look at the hair, big and bold, right? Like a stream, like water. Then over the face, very fine parallel lines, hatching on the cheek, then cross hatching on the eye socket to build up the tone. But it's very subtle, very done with much care. Then the neck, a little bit closer together, these lines. Again, very thin. So he's got that nice variety of line. Okay, what else do we have here? I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy Gibson or not, but these are the Gibson girls. So line weight, he's just a master at the line weight and using a pen with a quill or a brush dipped in ink. And so that's kind of a, you can get really beautiful stuff. Look at the hair. Look at that fine, subtle line on the nose, thick and thin. And then behind, look at the cross hatching, just to introduce the idea of a background, right? Overlapping the figure just a little bit, dark holding light, pop that shoulder, and a little bit of cross hatching, moving. It's not mechanical and strict, And then look at that under the neck, just following the form like a cylinder. Dark, moving into light, moving into dark. So that's really awesome stuff. And so that's kind of what what is involved here with this thing about rendering. And Maggie did a really nice job integrating some of these different techniques now in the hair, the background, the skin, because I can tell in that skin you went very lightly over it. And there's something about, I could do a flat tone, just give you that whole flat tone. But what can make it a little bit, I don't know, better is introducing some texture over the top. And it makes it look inconspicuous, because if you have a flat tone with nothing going on, it sort of doesn't look real. But if you introduce a little texture, it looks like the artist poured over every part of it, and it creates that texture, and it doesn't look bare, for lack of a better word. It looks somehow real. It looks like it's supposed to be there. So I'm liking that structure in the nose that you did. It's looking awesome. Lips looking great. All the connections. I think it's very, very cool. I would just want to take that one thing. So here, right? I just want that to be a little darker. It was misplaced in it, the reading of it, because it's turning away from the light, and it was obeying the rules of light that you set up here in the rest of the drawing. And so it was kind of sticking out to me. And that kind of quiets it down just a little bit. There's an edge there. Could be, see, it's a little bit, needs to be a little bit lighter. So what I could do is go over it with a slightly lighter tone. Just lighten it up with cross hatching or a wash or something like that. Okay, cool. Great job. Excellent work. Now I've got, let me go back to you guys over here. Yeah, okay. Zoran says, push shading much on this child, 1-year-old. That could make her older. Easy. If I push the shading. Well, if you put too many lines, okay, if you put too many lines or edges, right, it's going to make something look older. So you don't want too many lines in there, and you don't want too many edges either, because that's going to make it look more masculine, more chiseled, and you don't find that in a baby's face, right? So there's like a hard edge there, or a line which could look like a wrinkle, and then that ages somebody, like crow's feet next to the eye. Okay, or the laugh lines right here, don't make them too obvious. All right, people, I had a great time. Thanks for coming by. Great to see you all. And share this with your friends and let them know that I'm out here doing this. Again, what else can I say? It's been a pleasure. Support me. There's links in the description. If you want to contribute, there's a PayPal thing. Make a donation. That would be much appreciated. And I will see you guys next week, okay? Yeah, Maggie, got it. Cool. Lorenzo, my pleasure. Thanks for being here. And guys, I will sign off for now, okay? So we'll talk to you. Peace out. Bye.